Welcome everybody tonight. My name is Reed. I'm the library director, and we're really glad you're here. We have a wonderful art show right now hanging the rest of this month with Rosie Chater's oil paintings, Will Draxler and Bridger Buck's photography. The show's hanging both upstairs and downstairs, and after the talk, you'll have the luxury of looking at some of the artwork. Next Tuesday, we welcome Kara Ryan. She's going to give a historical talk about the dynamic League of Women Voters on MDI. That's an event co-sponsored with the MDI Historical Society. We're recording tonight's event, and it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. All registrants will also get sent a link. Kate is going to help facilitate the online questions for our online audience. And for them, please use your chat feature, and then she can direct them in the question and answer period. And so we're so pleased to have Rosie Chater. She's an artist, a captain, a sailor, a naturalist, an ecologist, and a lover of all things of the sea. When she's not painting on land, she's at sea. And we have Will Draxler, thank you, a photographer, field researcher based out of Bar Harbor. His work in both fields is founded on a deep appreciation and curiosity about the natural world. Please warmly welcome Rosie and Will.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. So wonderful to have so many people. And yeah, we're here to talk about a couple of islands that mean a lot to us, that we think are a couple of really incredible places. And by the nature of them being islands are, not always so accessible to everyone. So hopefully we can give you a little bit of insight into exactly what goes out on those islands, what makes them so special, all of the above. So first off, we just want to mention we'll have a little question period after, but if you have any immediate questions that would go good right in the middle, feel free to shout it out, raise your hand. We're happy to just stop and interrupt, no concern about that, because we're here to answer the questions that you have. And so anything that pops into your mind, we're happy to mix it up with that. And as was said, after this, if you have any questions about any of the art around, we'll be here. We love talking about this kind of stuff. So anything you have, art upstairs, art's downstairs, we'll be all over the place. Without further ado, this is Life on the Rock.
Yeah, and we are missing our third. Obviously, Bridger's not here. It probably says it on one of the programs, but they're doing seabird research on Southeast Farallon Island out in the Pacific right now. But they were going to be here, so they're here in spirit. Which way do I point this? I can also press the button.
There you go, try
it. Okay, I'm Rosie. I'm the oil painter of this show. I was born and raised in the Falkland Islands, and I grew up on a small island called New Island, which is now a nature preserve. There's many colonies of penguins and seals and sea lions. This is a picture of me in my penguin colony. These are rockhopper penguins. Yeah, I grew up sort of drawing from a young age. My parents are both artists, and this was kind of like the most magical place to grow up and do this. And then I came here with some other in between, obviously. But then I went to COA, where I was introduced to the islands, both seabird rich islands. And so I sort of found myself there once again, making art. Got really into photography and of course painting, along with some seabird research as well, which is the more sort of hands-on science part of our islands, which we'll get into later.
And I'm Will. I did not grow up in a penguin colony, but I am very grateful for the childhood I had. I grew up playing with things like snakes and such. My mom was a naturalist and an artist, And my dad was a scientist, and I grew up on a farm in Western Massachusetts. So I was taught very early on a deep respect and appreciation and joy for spending time in the natural world and engaging with it in different ways. And so that has taken different forms. But I love various forms of artistic expression. I am a photographer first as an artist, I suppose. I've been doing it for many, many years. And so that's what's expressed here. But I also love drawing and painting when I find the time. And since coming to College of the Atlantic, I've also kind of fallen into this. I went to Mount Desert Rock for the first time, and I need to go back. In fact, on the drive back, I told Rosie, I said, Rosie, I need this. How do I?
Well,
yes.
you step this way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's this island, both of these islands are very special in a number of ways. And for me, I think that engaging with that through the research that I do, which I will be talking about later in the presentation, is yeah, how I enjoy things.
So these are our islands. This is Mount Desert Rock, and here's Great Duck. You can see MDI in the background in both of these photos. Sort of gives you a scale of just how far out. You can even see Great Duck in there. It's the weird lump between where some sound is. And yeah, so obviously Mount Desert Rock is a lot farther out. It's 25 nautical miles offshore from the mainland, not from MDI. And Great Duck is about 12-ish miles out off MDI. Is that right? Somewhere around there. It's different every time you measure it. Anyway, you can see these islands are wildly different. The rock is literally a rock. There's a couple plants right in here by the house. But other than that, it's just a lump of granite. And Great Duck is like forested, and there's meadows, and there's all sorts of different biomes going on. And so there's lots of different projects that occur in different areas of it. Yeah, these are our islands.
And our story starts with the light keepers on both islands. Both islands were outfitted with light stations after it became clear that they were risks to navigation. And so after that point, they became aids to navigation. And for many, many years, various families of light keepers spent time out on both Mount Desert Rock and Great Duck Island. They would have these long stints, children would spend extended periods of time out there. And as things developed, eventually the US Coast Guard moved to a model where individuals would be stationed out there for a shorter period of time. And then in the 90s, when the light systems are automated, there no longer is really any need for there to be long-term stationing of individual Coast Guard members out on the islands. And so the Coast Guard sought to sell both of these islands, just like they did a number of the islands down the coast. And COA was kind of perfectly poised to purchase them. There had been a lot of work happening out on the islands prior to this, while it was still Coast Guard owned. Out on Mount Desert Rock, the research has been happening before that sale in conjunction with the Coast Guard since the 70s. And so in, I think, 1996 for Mount Desert Rock, 1997 for Great Duck, they were sold to the college, and they have lasted since as sites for scientific research to be conducted. And in the early days of that, it was a lot more graduate to student focused. People spent longer periods of time as individuals staying out there. In recent years, it's moved to a model where the majority of students working and living out there are undergraduates, and it serves as an opportunity for them to not just learn about these sites and the natural history around them in the classroom, but really get out there, be immersed in it, do the work, get all of that experience.
Real quick, we had a question. When were the lighthouses first constructed?
Mount Desert Rock was 1847. I don't know, Great Duck. I
Perhaps
suspect
John.
somebody would. 1890.
I also think it's worth clarifying, I forgot to mention, our presentation is called Life on the Rock, but colloquially we call Mount Desert Rock the Rock, but for the sake of this presentation, the Rock refers to just our islands generally. Yeah, because we will be calling it the Rock. Yeah. Oh, do you want to, should we like? Yes.
Oh, right now. You said the 90s at one point. Was that the 1890s or the 1990s?
The islands were sold to the college in the 1990s.
Okay, got it.
Can you go back to that? We can't see behind you.
Oh, yeah.
What is that picture about?
So this is a team of research crew from Mount Desert Rock. This is actually my mom, who was out on Mount Desert Rock in the 90s. And so they were going after, here's a fin whale. They were taking biopsy shots and also photo identification images for identifying individual whales. At the time, there was a lot of that based on Mount Desert Rock. That work is now done at Allied Whale from the college. To answer the question was, what is the photo?
And beyond that, like this site, the work on Mount Desert Rock was really novel and influential back in that day, especially Steve Katona, who was the genesis of Allied Whale and also a former president of the college, initiated a lot of the work that persists to this day around both fin and I believe humpback whale photo identification, and Mount Desert Rock was kind of like where that all started.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to caption these images. So this is the old boathouse on Mount Desert Rock, and there's the boat ramp. The house is in the back there. That boathouse is no longer there. It's been rebuilt because it got washed away. Yes. Okay. This one too. Yeah.
Right. Switch one.
Yeah.
So both islands are really perfectly situated for biological research. In the case of Mount Desert Rock, this island lies, relatively quite far offshore, and it's placed such that as deep cold waters come into the Gulf of Maine and are circulating around, the waters around Mount Desert Rock are kind of the first place where the ground of the Gulf, the bathymetry forces that water upward. And so that upward motion results in a lot of mixing, lots of nutrients going everywhere, and that just results in life. And in this case, that looks like lots of plankton, lots of fish, lots of whales, lots of seabirds. So both islands are very special for that. On Great Duck, we get herring gulls, great blackback gulls, common eiders, and Leach's storm petrels, all of which are really interesting colonial seabirds, and being able to study them in this site where they return to nest is really valuable. So every year researchers return. Great Duck focuses primarily on those seabirds. Mount Desert Rock focuses primarily on the whales, but both islands foster biological research in a number of fashions that focus not just on that, but on really anything that students are interested in. A lot of the focus of these programs is on student-developed projects. So people, if somebody has a question and they have a project they want to do, they can go for it, so long as they develop that project sufficiently and can make all of the logistics work. And I think that's really valuable. It not only are students able to contribute to these massive long-term data sets, but also to whatever strikes their fancy, and that sort of autonomy is really valuable for education.
And for photos here, this is Mount Desert Rock with some students up in the tower and some over there. Here's a whale breaching from shore because that's what it's like out there. And here's a sweet herring gull that these guys are on both islands. Okay, logistics is kind of fun because it's kind of crazy out there. And so it begins with a boat trip. This is the college's sweet vessel Osprey. We put this Zodiac right up in the middle here, and we pack it full of food, water, supplies, and students. And the islands only have boat ramps, which are these. Here's the Mount Desert Rock, and here's Great Duck's boat ramp. Same with the Rock and Great Duck down here. And so, as you can see, the way to get everything ashore, including food and water for drinking and washing, is with these little boats. And basically, you do your best, and you line up, and you land on the ramp. And then you unload, and we bring everything to the house. On Great Duck, that's about a quarter-mile walk to the house. Luckily, we have a Kubota to bring stuff, so that's been a big help since we fixed that. And the Rock is a much shorter walk, but still quite a lot to carry. And so everything that you see on these islands has been brought out in this way, other than the pool table, which is a helicopter from back in the day. Yeah, and so like all the construction, giant boards, the fridges, the freezers, all sorts of crazy stuff we fit into these little boats, and we hope they don't pop. Yeah. And so this is sort of just more about general what it's like to live out there. These are all pictures of Mount Desert Rock. This is what it's view from the lighthouse. We set up a little buoy swing in the boathouse. This is between the house and the classroom, which is our old generator shed. And then there's a built-up section on top of it, which is now a classroom where we do presentations and just general sort of meetings. And so this is just sort of a snapshot of life on the Rock, and here's Great Duck. This is just sort of like the forested area, and then this is the walk to the lighthouse. You can see it's like lush and meadowy and sort of quiet, sort of magical paradise.
As I mentioned earlier, the big reasons why we're out here is that being able to return to the islands year after year allows us to gain insights to how the biology is shifting year after year. On Mount Desert Rock, that looks like what we call tower watch. That's literally just visually observing. For whales present around the island, the tower provides a perfect vantage point for observing those whales, and it allows us to really see anything that comes within a couple of miles of the island. What that practically looks like is every day during the summer season, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a break for lunch, 2 students are up in the tower facing in opposite directions, just scanning the water to see anything. And the idea is, with some caveats, that any whale that spends time in that area will be sighted. And so the data that we get from that, the specific numbers on presence are not just like a few sightings that we got. That was everything that was out there, as best as we can figure it. And that makes up the largest portion of the research on MDR. We're looking specifically for baleen whales primarily. So we get fin whales, humpback whales, minke whales. Historically, right whales have foraged around the Rock. But the last one was seen back in 2017, has not been seen since, but maybe one day we will see right whales from the island again. We also see a great number of other things. We get basking sharks, dolphins, porpoises, mola mola, tuna sometimes, and it also gives us a good opportunity to record the fishing and general vessel activity around the island, because we can see boats from many miles off.
The question about helicopter pool safety. When did that get dropped?
Oh, boy.
Dates.
60s? Yeah.
71 or 2.
71
or
or
two. The
From Exxon.
the story goes that, you know, getting these Coast Guard folks to agree to going out to Mount Desert Rock was somewhat of a challenge. You know, there were lots of various light stations that, you know, they might be stationed at any given point, but Mount Desert Rock was kind of the most, you know, isolated in severe conditions. And so the idea was, well, you give them a pool table, maybe they'll, you know, want to stay out there.
And just for photos, here's another sort of, these two are humpbacks taken from the rock. Some students at the top of the lighthouse on Tower Watch, and these are just some tools for Tower Watch. Photos for taking these, or cameras and binoculars.
And so in addition to those like larger longitudinal projects, each student is expected to develop an individual project, and that looks slightly different between Great Duck and the Rock. But on the Rock, a number of those recent projects have been related to intertidal work. This is a crew member pressing seaweed. Oh, wait, that's not Great Duck?
Yeah.
That's fine. There's an insect collection. There have been a couple of insect collections over the years. Lots of various surveys with seals that we'll get into a moment. And on the hummingbirds. Yeah, lots of intertidal work that varies year to year. Mount Desert Rock is part of a network that does a coordinated sampling effort around that, but there's also lots of interest because you know, I mean, half the island is intertidal. There's lots of really interesting invertebrates, seaweeds, nudibranchs, that sort of thing. And a lot of Great Duck individual research focuses on one of the few seabird species out there. So looking at specifically some sort of effect on the gull population and the storm petrel population, fluctuations between years, but also things that affect the populations within a single year.
There's also a lot of botanists working on Great Duck due to its greenery. Here's a picture of the Tower Watch sort of version of Great Duck's Tower Watch, which is more about sightings data for birds, but a similar sort of effort. And yeah, I can explain those too. This is seaweed pressing.
So yeah, like I said, lots of intertidal work. We have some really cool invertebrates. This is a sea spider here. We have a theodolite out there, which we use to gain like highly accurate relative positions between points. This past season, we had some really interesting microplastic work in fish GI tracts, which required lots of just fishing out of our inflatable. A lot of really incredible life out there and a lot of different student interest to match that.
These are some microscope photos from this dissecting scope, which is huge for searching for tiny, tiny little beasts that you find in here somehow.
And now we get to my pride and joy, the MDR copepod project. Just as a quick context, copepods are little crustaceans, so they're, you know, most closely related to like shrimp or lobsters, but they are a lot smaller, and they're planktonic, so they're just floating all about in the water column. Copepods are globally distributed and also not just in the ocean, they're in freshwater, they're in trees, they're in carnivorous plants. It's incredible. And they in the Gulf of Maine, specifically in the marine context, are a really, really important food source for a lot of animals. Fish, seabirds, all of that, but primarily the big one that everybody talks about is the North Atlantic right whale, because
in the library someplace.
North Atlantic right whales are critically endangered, and they feed specifically on this guy, this one species at certain life stages. They'll eat others, but this is what they prioritize. And so understanding how this specific species is doing is really, really important. So over the past several years, a number of students have passed this project student to student, year to year, and each week going out on Osprey again, using her to sample at a few different sites around the island, and analyzing the samples that we collect to see how the population health changes.
Here's Will collecting the copepods. This net acts like a sieve, basically. You drag it along in the water and the water goes through and these guys get stuck. This is kind of how you get the copepods out. You wash the net down into a little thing called a cod end, and then you get them out of there. This is the cod end, it's a plastic jar. And then the processing is kind of like getting them individualized and then getting them standardized for a certain amount of water. And you can tell how many you caught in that net for how much water there was, giving them sort of a density. Yeah.
As I mentioned, also a lot of seals on Mount Desert Rock, about the I don't know areas, but there's an entire ledge which, when exposed at low tide, classically gets covered in seals, and you can kind of see like a little bit of that there. It's like that, but lots. And that's both harbor and gray seals, relatively large haul out sites compared to a lot of the other places like local areas. So it's a really important spot to monitor. And as seal populations have increased and as water has warmed, we're seeing a lot more great white activity in this area. So monitoring for wounds on seals has been a recent endeavor to understand how that's shifting. It is shifting, it's increasing, and that's really, really important consideration. This is not that, this is the inverse. This is a seal eating a shark. They had to even the scores. This is a really important observation that we made a couple of years ago, that one of our colleagues recently published, which is a gray seal predating a poor beagle shark. It's one of the only times this has been observed. And, opportunities like this, are not nearly so present elsewhere. Having so many seals in this very productive area leads to some really interesting findings.
Yeah, and so this little chunk of gray seals is, like Will's saying, like a very small part of the huge ledge that has had individual counts of up to like 800 seals per low tide is kind of the numbers we're talking about. In recent years, it's been like 1 to 200, and we're not super sure why, but I mean, there's plenty of theories out there. But yeah, these are just sort of all gray seals, and if you can imagine that, but just like a thick mat. And so other than shark wounds, which I didn't put a picture in here because they're pretty gruesome, but we've got plenty of them if you're curious. This is a photo. If you look carefully, you can see this harbor seal right here has a line around its neck, which is another thing that we're looking for, is entanglements, or any sort of like prop strikes, other sort of human interaction with the seals, which is also interesting to us. Yeah. Oh, and this is from the seal blind, which is on top of the boathouse. This is Will and Bridger taking photos. And here's a little gray seal, and this is a little baby. That's a really funny picture.
Oh, when you see a line like that around his neck, would you dare walk on that rock? Just shit it off.
Did you repeat that?
Oh yeah, you go ahead.
The question was whether if we see an entangled seal, we might try and assist it. And we're certainly tempted to, but especially when the seals are on the seal ledges, it would often do more harm than good to try and assist that seal. If we get anywhere near close to them, they flush, they go into the water as quickly as possible. And with this big group of seals just all clustered together, when that all happens in this big panic, stuff can happen. We don't want to disturb them nearly as much, and that is the very restricted activity. So we don't do any seal disentanglement. It would be like a seal has to be in really, really bad condition before we can get anywhere close to it. And by that point, there's probably nothing we can do.
I think that individual seal was there the entire season with that around its neck. So it was very able to leave and fish and sort of take care of itself, even though it was kind of not okay.
And it's important to note that like that seal, we see a decent number of seals that look something like this, which is really, really tragic. But seals are incredibly, incredibly resilient. We see things like this. We see, like the shark-bitten seals will literally just have a chunk of meat out of their side, big, big hole. And they sit there and they lie there, and we'll see the same one a few months later, and it'll be doing a lot better. And they can survive the most incredible things. It's really remarkable. Getting to bird stuff, on both islands, we see a lot of really interesting land bird activity, specifically passerines, so any sort of like perching bird or songbird. Mount Desert Rock and Great Duck as well are situated so that as birds migrate on the North Atlantic Flyway, these two islands are some of the first things that they encounter. So we get birds that have been, flying for a very long time, and they arrive and they're exhausted, and it makes a great opportunity to observe them, especially on Mount Desert Rock. There's no trees for them to hide in, and we have that one little rose bush, a few plants, and so they all tend to congregate there. So it makes for really fantastic observing because they're all just forced into being so dense. We tend to get a lot of really interesting, unusual birds. Mount Desert Rock gets birds that really don't show up many other places. For instance, yellow-breasted chat show up on the island almost every year and do not show up in Maine most years in general. And some really special sightings of like state and regional firsts have been observed on both islands.
Yeah, the question maybe been covered already. Is the rock occupied in the summer season only now?
Yeah. So
in the back in the day, did the U.S. Coast Guard stay out there year round?
Yeah, so when the lake needed tending, like needed active human intervention, that was a year-round process. And often there are lots of stories of like the lake keepers and their families being stranded without resupply for extended periods of time, simply because back in the day, before they had outboard engines, the method to land on the island was literally you take your rowboat and you go up to the seal ledges and you try and time it right, and you just go for it and try and ram yourself into a crack before the wave topples you over. And so landings were a very precarious situation, and often with the high seas during the winter, there was really nothing anybody could do. So in the past, yeah, it was year round no matter what. But since both islands have been purchased by the college, there has not been a lot of winter expeditions in general. There has been more or less one apiece on the islands, and it's really fascinating out there in the winter. It's a really incredible place because there's the seals hang out on both islands. There's just a lot we really don't know because we have not been out there in that time, but it's difficult and it's dangerous, and so we, along with Bridger, have tried very diligently to get out during the winter, and it has not been in the books. But spreading into spring and fall expeditions has been kind of more of a an effort trying to make as much use as we can, despite the fact that, the seasonality and the weather restrictions on the rock and on great duck make it challenging.
Is there any plan to plant a second bush?
I think the question
Yeah.
was that, is there any plan to plant a second rose bush?
And the answer is kind of no, because there is little to no soil. The rose bush that's out there is kind of a miracle that it's out there, and I think its roots are the reason the soil is there. There's like a spot around the house that there's like some stuff. And back in the day, people would like gift boxes of dirt to the people staying out there. And of course it would get washed away in the winter storms. But like there's like little crevices here and there where there's still some stuff. And that's sort of the plant situation. Although recently there has been a greenhouse, which is a fun new development out there, where we have buckets of soil with plants. Yes.
What about plumbing? Like, what's the situation with plumbing?
The question was about plumbing. Great Duck and the Rock have very different plumbing. Great Duck has an outhouse, and there is running water, but it's not potable. So there's like washing water. It's just cold water from a hose, basically, that comes out of a tap, luckily. And Mount Desert Rock has no plumbing other than the tube that goes from the sink to like the over there. And so we carry all of our water out. We heat it up on the stove to do dishes. We do it in like sink buckets. As far as toilets go on the Rock, I could go into this, but I don't need to, but I will a little bit. There's like a marine head, and then we have like composting heads as well. And so it's complicated, and I'm happy to talk more. Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, and to stand in for Bridger, who's right here, this is sort of like their whole thing, the land birds, the passerines. It's a shame they're not here for this, but they spent most of their time doing this on Great Duck Island, and because it's such a giant, like sort of forested long tube, they had like tracks through the woods that they would stop and do their surveys, versus like on the Rock, you sit on the porch and you look at the rose bush and you wait for things to go past. But yeah, Great Duck is a lot more of an involved sort of giant forest to fiddle through for these tiny little guys, and they are like literally this big, and they found hundreds of them, so that's awesome.
What's the bird on the
Oh.
upper right?
This is a woodpecker. I don't remember if it's a downy. It's a downy. Yeah. Okay, cool. This is on the lighthouse on the Rock. That was from a couple of years ago. He looks pretty scruffy. As you can see, he's not meant to be out there. He probably blew in and then just sort of probably died there, but we hope for the best that he didn't. Yes. No, there are no deer. Luckily, there's no mammals, land mammals, except on Great Duck, there are European hare, which are invasive as of like less than 100 years ago. Yes.
Does that mean you got no ticks?
Yeah, well, there are ticks on Great Duck. They're weird ticks. They don't really do the people thing that much. Like we all roll around in the grass, and it's very infrequent that they land on us. No, I don't know what kind of ticks they are, but they're all over the rabbits. So bummer for them. Yeah. Okay. This is my favorite part, because this is yeah, sorry.
What about?
This is a yellow warbler on Great Duck.
Field sparrow.
In the rose bush on the Rock.
Yeah, that's
And the rose bush also, but I don't know who that is.
I should know. I don't.
Yeah.
Every time I go out to the Rock, my warbler ID gets so much better, and then by the start of the next season, I've forgotten it all and I have trouble learning it.
And this is Will, Bridger, and another student on Great Duck doing a dawn, probably dusk.
No.
Yeah, you're right. Count of probably gulls, because the herring gull colony is all around here. You can't really see them in this photo, but the lighthouse is perfectly planted like right in the middle of the main herring gull colony on the island, one of two large ones. And so a lot of the gull research that isn't like hands-on with the gulls in your hands is done from this tower. Any other bird questions? Yeah. That's kind of sea warbler. Sure. That'll do. Nice. Technology. Okay. Seabird studies. So this is another thing that's really big on our islands, especially for great duck longitudinally. And then on Mount Desert Rock sort of recently because the gulls haven't really been there that long because the coasties and the students who first got out there were not into the gulls. So they are a recent addition. But so most of these are on, actually all of these are on great duck, except for these two photos. But this is a herring gull chick, and these are adults. This is a student releasing a captured adult herring gull. I'm pretty sure that one has a backpack, which is a GPS tracker they're basically like a little backpack that you put on their backs and you can see where they're going. And we've tracked many gulls in their journeys from the island and then afterward, like where they're going in the winter. Which is some interesting stuff. And then this is a photo of a herring gull in a pillowcase. And so there's a couple things going on here. One is this color band, which is a very large visible version of this small metal federal band. These are for individual identification, obviously, but so for this one, there is a set of numbers on it, but you need to like hold the bird to read that unless you're really good with binoculars. And so we put these large ones on them when they're old enough as chicks or if we catch them as adults so that you can see them on a beach and say, I know that bird. And then this is we're taking measurements of the tarsus there. And we take also measurements of the wing cord and the beak and all sorts of stuff. Yes.
I have a question about bands.
Yeah.
I took a picture of a seagull at Seawall.
Nice.
And I was able to read the band.
Love it.
The next year, I got a picture of a seagull. It was the same seagull.
Awesome.
But how do you know who put the band on? Because I know there's different colors.
Yeah, so the different colors are different like field stations or areas they're put on. So great duck is this sort of black on orange these days. It used to be white on maroon.
Great duck and the rock.
Great duck and the rock, yeah, we sort of share a permit code. And but yes,
So the band color is based on where it was.
yeah, like who banded it.
banded?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you see a green bird, that's like, oh, Isla Shoals, what are you doing up here? So that's kind of fun. And you can sometimes find this information on the bird banding website, which is a government website, so you might not have a lot of luck with it right now. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so just a PSA on that. If you see a gull with a band, you can report it, and that is enormously beneficial because knowing where birds show up different places if they don't have a GPS tag on them, this is, that's why we do it, and that is a very valuable way.
Yeah, the US Banding Lab. Go ahead, Asher. Speak your mind. I know you over there.
If you see a banded bird and you're able to read the band on that bird, you can go to
042. I remember it.
Yeah, you can go to reportband.gov. And there's a whole easy to follow template. You just fill in all the information you know. So species, what leg was it on, the color of the band, and the color of the text. And then you can offer your email and you will get sent a digital certificate that will have the name of the license holder, the year it was banded, the age it was banded, how they caught it,
Where it was
and
banded.
location. So all that information gets emailed to you. It's awesome. Everyone should do it all the time.
I just thought it was ironic that I got the same bird.
Yes.
2 years in a
That's
row.
beautiful.
And that's really cool because working with gulls very closely, you learn about individual gulls and you learn about their personalities and you can see how individual they are. And so gulls have preferences and they have places that they like going back to. And so Seawall is the place that gull likes. And
It's especially cool to see them year after year on the islands because sometimes they come back to the same nest site. Sometimes they mix with other gulls and we're like, what's happening? It's really interesting. It sort of paints a picture of who they are as a gull also around us and knowing them year after year. Especially the chicks because we're banding these little guys and then sometimes they come back. You see them next year and you're like, dang, you survived. Huge win. Yeah, and so this is how we catch the adults. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a big string trap, sort of lobster trap, sort of esque. And we replace their eggs with fake eggs, and we put their eggs in a little safe area. And then when they sit on it, they knock the trap over, and then we go grab them and put them in their little sack. And then they get released when they're done. And usually they go straight to the intertidal and have a little bath. And then they go back to their nest. Yeah. Here's some students holding some chicks on the rock. Yeah.
So yeah, the other really incredible seabird that we have on Great Duck are Leach's storm petrels. This population is very unique because it is I believe the southernmost extent of the colony distribution of this bird. So it's also quite unique because kind of like traditionally they don't really nest in like forests. This colony is in a like this mixed forested area and fields, and they're kind of all over the place. And so a lot of the recent work with storm petrels on great duck specifically, you know, some of the questions are around like, you know, why are they where they are? What, you know, determines you know, success, or what determines site selection or mate selection fidelity, and more broadly, kind of trying to understand the way that like the parents work together to raise a chick is really interesting because you know, they have this chick to feed, but they have to go way offshore in order to feed themselves and bring back food for their chick. And so the switching between parents is really, really interesting.
And so just for pictures, I'm gonna speed it up, we're running out of time here. Here's a Leach's storm petrel with an egg under a little piece of plywood. This is a chick. They're like so silly little mothballs. This is a student smelling one because they smell delicious. I can't explain it. This is grubbing, which is what we call sticking our arm in the hole and feeling around until you get the petrel and then carefully pulling it out. And yeah, there's someone recording the band on this side. And so the last sort of piece of all of this is the art part, of course. So here's some art things happening on Mount Desert Rock. This is the kitchen and sort of dining area. Ceramics was a new recent kind of fun addition. Obviously there's painting, students go out there and write, there's photography, people do wood burning and like a lot of musical instruments playing, and yeah, it's a huge sort of part of the islands is the art component.
Question is, are non-students allowed to visit these islands?
There can be visitors on the boat days, like when the boat comes out. I think in the past there's been a volunteer program on Mount Desert Rock, which is no longer because now we've sort of shifted the focus to students. Is when people could volunteer to help with the whale research out there. And I think that ended in the end of the 90s probably. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of space out there for more people, and there's lots of students who want to be out there. So these days it is primarily students. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, on the artistic side that I have spent the most time on, there's a lot of photography that goes on out there. Photography is a tool for research in a lot of ways, you know, doing things like boundary sites and identification of, you know, whether it's, you know, marine mammals or birds is really valuable, but a lot of us find a lot of value in, you know, it as an artistic pursuit as well. You can see this is the Milky Way over Mount Desert Rock. It is very, very dark out there, except for every 15 seconds where it's very, very bright out there, which adds some complications. But it is like a truly like darker than almost anywhere else on the East Coast. And it's, you know, incredible to be out there on a dark night, which is why I have a lot of photos from nighttime out there. And yeah.
This is Will and Bridger doing photography. I took that photo of them. All circles around. Okay, and yeah, this is kind of the last piece here. These are sort of my painting projects, and these are some, are these yours, Will? Yeah, these are Will's. And that's just a very small subset. I don't have photos of everyone's art, but pretty much everyone who goes out there gets either they're doing it or they're like roped into doing it because everyone else is doing it. And so it's like, it's another sort of fun depiction of our islands is like how much like the mass of art that comes off of them is really fantastic. Yeah, and here's an example of what we're doing with it. other than this one that you're at. These are two different island art shows, which is something we started doing a couple years ago for any students out on both Great Duck and Mount Desert Rock to sort of show their art and what they've created. So there's like all sorts of things happening. There's like paintings and photography. These are more scientific paintings done for a field guide.
Pressed seaweed.
Here's little
Prints.
ceramics and also sculptures. I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff that happens out there. Yeah, and so that kind of brings us to the end of our little talk here. We will be doing a little sort of wander around. For anyone who has questions, we'll be here a little while. There's art upstairs, down below also. Again, Bridger can't be with us, but their photography is up, sort of intermixed with ours as well. And yeah, do you guys have any more questions? Yes.
I have a question. Does anybody dive out there?
Does anybody dive out there? No. Nope. There are a lot of sharks. And you see the seals sort of wash up where we're like washing up things, and they've got the giant bites, and it's not super enticing. I mean, like there used to be a lot more swimming, but now that the waters are warming and the sharks are moving, and we're kind of like also living out of the water. Yeah. Yes.
One question about the whales and the great number that you have in sightings and the opportunities around the rock. I was wondering whether you had ever considered, or whether somebody has already done, putting a hydrophone in the water, so that there's a lot of interest now in whale communication, and to be able to correlate that sound with your visual observations seems like it would be very powerful.
Yeah, that's actually some of the projects that we've been doing the last couple of years. We have a student who is trying to do passive acoustic monitoring with some pop-up buoys, which some worked and some didn't. But we do have that as a project, and yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And I think there's also some like other people who were trying to get involved outside of COA, putting a passive acoustic buoys around the area for the purpose of listening. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any still artifacts from like the 20th century out on the rock in the building, like photographs or photograph records or things like that?
Yeah, we've got some cool photos on the walls. There's like some weird plaques in the rocks in some areas. There's a fragment of the fog bell that used to be out there before there was a fog horn. And I'm pretty sure some giant hurricane took most of it out, but our captain found a little like nugget of the bell out there. And
the island is like kind of just like covered with signs of all of the activity that has happened over the years. There's lots of like places where there are like, you know, rusted bolt holes and things that you can trace back in photos. Say it?
Spire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We actually one of my photos from the hall. We have what we call the Western Spire, this big tower that in a past life was used to transfer like payloads from the water onto the land. And yeah, it's kind of all riddled throughout and cool to connect to all the photos that we have.
A study session, how long a time frame is that? Is that a whole semester, or is that a few weeks? How long are you out there doing your research?
The question was, how long are the students out there doing research? It's different for both islands, and it kind of shifts year to year. So there's some students who go out for the entire summer. So that's end of school, usually like June 6th, and like second week of June. And then the Great Duck season usually ends at the end of July, but sometimes it's extended if there's students doing projects that want to be out there longer for whatever reason. And Great Duck, or the Rock, usually comes off at the end of August. But there's other student programs, like orientation programs from like students at the college also that go out there afterward. And so there's also some like projects that don't require that much time. So the last 2 years we did like a full season or a half season where you get like June through July through August, or the whole thing. And then yeah, it kind of varies.
Question.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was wondering if, in addition to the art that you already shared with us, if you do any performing arts, like choreography or any sort of?
Specifically on the islands. Oh, the question was that are we doing any performing arts as well as visual arts on the islands? And that's
Like maybe meet me at the lighthouse.
Great Duck had a great rendition.
we did do the lighthouse competition.
I thought you were gonna film that. That was awesome.
Yes, if anybody hasn't seen back a couple of years ago, is it like the National Lighthouse Society or an organization of a similar name, did a competition to this song called Meet Me at the Lighthouse, basically like creating a video of like a performance based on that. And the Great Duck crew from that year, including Autumn, made it to the finals with that and didn't quite make it, but it was very close.
Very close. I love the part where you're all on the spiral staircase.
It's great.
And there's
My question
Send
was,
that out in the with the link with of all the other.
maybe. There's also like musical sort of students that are going out there to write and perform. And obviously they perform to like the students that are out there. And some of them have disseminated a little bit afterward, but not specifically like I made this on the rock, kind of just it's part of their body of work continuing. Sorry, what was your question?
are those your favorite pants?
Oh boy. They're my green pants. So big.
It's huge. I know it's very significance. Anything you do.
I work on a schooner right now, and I have my dirty pants and my clean pants, and you're seeing 50% of my wardrobes.
She noticed I did it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that's just pants.
Yeah.
Want to say the paintings of other. I would like just walking through the hallways. It felt like we are looking at water.
Thank you.
You just must see it so.
You do see it a lot. You can't actually look anywhere without seeing it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
What kind of projects can you do out there that you can do because you're at COA that would be harder to do with other types of associations?
The question was like what projects we can do on these islands that might not be possible elsewhere. I think that like, you know, I mean the place is certainly very unique, but the structure is also very unique where you know, students are responsible for their own stuff in a way that really you do not see anywhere else. You know, like I've been to a whole lot of conferences where students are, you know, undergraduate students specifically, are just like kind of like the, you know, annoying underfoot people who might, you know, do some work, might mess up the work. But you know, here like the like responsibility is put on students and saying like you are capable of this, and like, you know, like mentors and faculty members are there to support the students, but at the end of the day, like they're out there, you know, without like that mentorship a lot of the time, and so it is on them to do the work. And what you see is a lot of students being very, very passionate and very engaged in doing some really incredible stuff that I really just don't think would happen otherwise if they weren't empowered in the same way, because a lot of people just kind of don't see that.
Yeah, and taking this work out into the world specifically is like, you see examples of that. Like we've been to conferences presenting like the work we've done with the gulls and your copepods and stuff, and we're the only undergraduates there. Like I was a second year talking about work that I got to do like under my name, and because of like Great Duck and like John's seabird sort of ongoing research, and I got to present that, and everyone else there was like doing their way up studies, and I was like the undergrad, and that's kind of like sort of an example of like how it really gets you out there in a way that no one else is able to do, and that's I think what the college is really good at. Yeah.
Just a comment on that topic is I've really appreciated the posters in the lobby of COA that these students have done. It's really impressive work.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Thanks.
Good to have it up there.
Any other questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And on that note, I just want to thank Did Donato and John Anderson. Those two in the back have been instrumental in the history of these islands. This program would not happen without them. So a huge shout out to them.
And also huge thank you to the library
Yes.
and Kate and Eber. But just like, yeah, for having us at this show and giving us an opportunity to have our work and also talk about our favorite little islands. It's really nice. So thank you guys.
Asher
Oh yes, thank you, Asher.
came in and said, you need to check out this painter. All right.
Yeah, so thank you all. We'll be around if you're interested in any questions about the art. We're happy to answer.